Well, now everyone's really disappointed, aren't you? I do not have any PowerPoint slides, so as long as you listen, feel free to tweet or check your email right now. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for welcoming me here today. I do work with a group called the Council on Competitiveness in the United States, and it is a network of CEOs, university leaders, labor leaders, lab directors, and other sort of decision makers that have come together around the question of how do we make the United States as competitive as we possibly can. And we define that both as the competitiveness of our companies, our institutions, but also individuals. How do we make sure that we have a rising standard of living that goes along with corporate and institutional success? What I'm going to spend a little time talking to you today about is the importance of investing in people and in ideas. What we just heard, I think, was a fantastic discussion focused more on the K through 12 side of the equation. I'm going to be speaking a little bit more towards the higher education and then what happens beyond that as far as a return on investment. We need funding and support for education and for research to be long-term, to be stable, to be predictable, so people can plan, so people that have a passion can make investments in time and effort. But that's not, unfortunately, the world that we're living in right now. Well, at the Council, we are continuing to urge our Congress, the administration, to invest more in research, invest more in people. The truth is that that is not likely to be what happens right now in this age of constrained budgets. And research is not a bank account where you put money in and you get a return on that investment, a fixed return, or at least that's the way the bank accounts used to work. Research is really about people. It's how we educate, the technology that we use and employ, and the incentives that we create. Now, sometimes in Washington, and I'm sure that is true here, we get bogged down in debates over numbers and start talking about esoteric terms like sequestration, delinking budgets, multidisciplinary, cross-collaborative, intergenerational aggregators. I actually made that one up, but you can believe, you could understand and probably thought, I think I've heard of that. It sounds plausible. I've had the opportunity very recently to see two very personal examples of the passion that can drive science and research. And in what is too rare an occurrence, participated in two standing ovations for science recently. A few months ago, I attended a dinner, a tribute for a gentleman named Chuck Vest, who was the former president of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He had headed our National Academy of Engineering, and he passed away recently. But at the event, which was a tribute to him, everyone rose, gave him a standing ovation for a tremendous career. And then more recently, I was at a dinner for the Intel Science Awards, which just featured an amazing collection of young talent, kids at the beginnings of their careers, just filled with such vast potential. And we should encourage those kids. We should thank those leaders that came before. But today and in between, we have to enable. We have to do this within the context of the global economy that we all live in, where no one can make assumptions about where ideas are going to be commercialized. Much of the work of the Council over the last 4 years has been focused on issues around manufacturing policy, energy, workforce, talent. And it's really focused on how do we maximize our return on the investment that we are making. Just a short aside, an interesting meeting we had about a year ago was with the Korean head of their competitiveness organization. And he came in and he was sitting in our office and he said, you have a tremendous opportunity here in the United States in the area of natural gas, which has now become relatively inexpensive and abundant in your country. And he said, I hope you don't take advantage of that. He said, you have a window right now, but it's going to close very quickly because other countries are responding much more quickly than the United States is right now. So we're asking ourselves today, have we done enough to take advantage of this opportunity? And more generally, are we doing enough to enable researchers, scientists, entrepreneurs to capitalize on their discoveries and to take the ideas out of the lab. And then also, how are universities, to what we just heard earlier, how is the learning process adapting to help facilitate that? At the Council, we have about 70 university and college presidents that are part of our organization. And they are all rethinking about how they educate in the United States today. They're looking at technology, like the massively online courses. They are dealing with increased pressure from students who are leaving these universities with debts approaching $150,000, $200,000 and are asking and really demanding, what skills do I now have as I leave your institution that apply directly to the jobs and the opportunities that exist in the marketplace? So even at the higher education level, they are adapting to be more student-centric and away from a faculty-directed teaching. As I said, the online courses that we now hear so much about are a tool in this endeavor, but I don't know that we know yet how effective a tool that can be or what the real implications of it are. If you listen to a lot of the university leaders talk about it, they view it really as an expense or a public relations opportunity. But from a student perspective, this is an opportunity to learn for less, which can be a very powerful, powerful driver. One thing I want to highlight, though, is what about the sense of community? Because that's what you'll hear a lot from the college and university leaders, is part of the experience of higher education is the sense of community and being with others that are learning as well. Now, when I say community, obviously I'm not talking about the parties or the whatever fun opportunities that go with college, though that is a part of it. But it's the collaboration, it's the cooperation, it's the sharing of ideas. And I don't know that the online impact yet fully grasps what that's going to mean for that part of the experience. Now, the Council on Competitiveness, my organization, was a pioneer in the work several years ago on the concept of clusters of innovation and regional innovation. And now I want to mention that a growing number of universities are really looking at themselves more and more as hubs of regional innovation. They're trying to figure out not only how do we educate differently, but how do we play a slightly different role in the economy as not just an employer, but as a creator of new businesses, startups, mentors. Universities can play a tremendous role in not just in three, I guess, general ways that I'd like to highlight. One is in keeping existing firms where they are and helping them to thrive by providing talent and expertise. They attract new business investment because of a skilled labor pool and the research base that they have. And they really create a dynamic environment for entrepreneurs, as I mentioned, either by providing mentors, by providing incentive-based intellectual property rules, and we could have a long discussion on intellectual property alone. But it's really, there are examples all over the world of colleges and universities that are doing tremendous things in the area of IP, that are creating great incentives for corporate investment, for their researchers, for individuals to really succeed and to prosper. The universities, I think, are understanding this role that they can play in economic development. I would argue that policymakers are a little behind them in their ability to grasp how important this can be. I know in talking with a number of our members, they spend a lot of time with their legislators at the local level, at the state level, explaining to them that it's not just their role in the community as educators. They're not just trying to license the next hot product, but that they play a key role and should be recognized for that role when it comes to supporting the university with public funds as a force of economic development. We see the same thing happening at the federal level in the United States when it comes to budgets and research dollars. As I said at the beginning, so much of the discussion is just on the raw numbers. How much are we spending? How much do we spend compared to this country? What's the percentage of GDP? And not really looking at it as an investment in our future and an economic multiplier. And it's not an abstract discussion, because in the United States, we are grappling with a new reality. And we see that here in Ireland. You know, for decades after World War II, the United States was pretty much the only place that you were going to see commercialization, tech development. Now, then it was the best place to be. Now we're still among one of the top places to be. But at what point do we become just another place to be? And that's a real concern right now, because we can't afford in the United States to be just the idea factory for the rest of the world, where commercializations occur someplace else. Now, I want to conclude today with just a short anecdote, a case study, if you will, that sort of brings together a few of the ideas that I've talked about this morning. And that's a public-private partnership that the council was a part of that involved 4 large corporations, companies like Lockheed Martin, Deere, Procter & Gamble, some of our government agencies, and a number of our universities. And the idea of this partnership was to enable small businesses to take advantage of supercomputing capabilities that, because of the size of their companies, they would have no ability to do so in another circumstance. And this particular story is about a small company called Jeco Plastics. It's nothing fancy in the sense of some of the exciting new technologies that we see today, but they make industrial-sized plastic pallets that you might put a large engine on or something like that. Nothing you can go down to the hardware store and buy. These have to be custom designed. And they worked with this partnership that we created because they had a last-minute request from a large manufacturer in Germany, in fact, to change the design of their pallets. And we're basically told, if you can bring us a proposal in a short period of time, then we can talk to you about whether you're the right company for us. Well, in normal circumstances, they would never be able to do this, because the way they operate normally is they would build a series of test pallets, they would ship them off, they would see if they fit, if the specs were right. If they weren't, they'd come back, they'd build a few more. Well, there's no time to do that, but because of this partnership that we created, they were able to access expertise and supercomputing capabilities to model and design this entire project and new pallet on the computer. As a result, they were able to get these specs back to the manufacturer, demonstrate that they would work for their product, and they were able to get that contract. Now, this had an immediate impact on this small business. They increased payroll, they hired new workers, they made new capital investments, and now they had demonstrated expertise in a technology that many of their competitors did not. So this is just one example where not only is it necessary to make these investments in people, in ideas, but it's also critical to connect the dots so that none of this is being done in a vacuum. This is the sort of endeavor I would argue we need to do more of, and I thank you very much for having me here to this fantastic conference. I look forward to the discussion today. Thank you.